Hi, people. This is DJ,
This is Ish.
and this is season
Season
3
3
of
of
Pero Let Me Tell You.
Oye, mi gente, this is Ish. Hope everybody's doing well. No, it's been a crazy couple, I was going to say days, but quite frankly, weeks, between starting the year off with fires in Australia, then COVID, and, all these protests where we're calling for social change and things of that nature. It can seem a little crazy, can seem a little, odd. And honestly, this is not the episode that we had intended to run this week. It's actually why it's a little bit late in being uploaded. For those of you who joined us on Instagram Live on Friday, June 5th, we had an hour-long conversation about the need for social justice, social reform, Black Lives Matter, the protests that are happening. Darian, DJ, gave us his firsthand experience of having been at the protest here in Miami the first day, and what he saw and what it deteriorated into, and his feelings about why that happened and things of that nature. Unfortunately, when we went to go hit post to Instagram IGTV, sorry, because that's where you can put your Instagram live stuff. Don't know what happened. I think, quite frankly, Instagram has been a bit overwhelmed these past couple of days, rightfully so, with everyone posting and calling for change, and really, keeping everybody abreast of what's happening with all of the protests and marches across this country and across the world, which is very, very, refreshing to see that we've decided as a whole, as a people, as a human race, that things like Black Lives Matter, things like police reform, things of that nature aren't just an American issue. It's things that do have to be considered across the world in order for it to really have that impact, because ultimately it's about humanity is what it really comes down to. But unfortunately, as I said, the episode, which would have been our episode 113, which is why this is 112.5, didn't load. It's kind of been lost to the ether. So for those of you who were able to join us on the actual episode, thank you for doing so. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation. We were looking for your input, and many of you did provide us that commentary and questions, which allowed us to further the conversation, which is always what we intend to do with this podcast. Ultimately, yeah, we're fun and we have a good time. We like to laugh, but we really hope that more so than anything, we're fostering conversation across the board for our listeners, maybe taking that to their friends, their family, coworkers, whoever they feel could benefit from having that discourse. And that is something that we pride ourselves on here on Pero Let Me Tell You. Also, want to go ahead and thank our friends of the podcast. We had two guests join us while we were posting and speaking on Instagram Live. We had Olympic athlete Daniel Leyva. For those of you who may remember, he was on our show. We met Daniel when we were in Los Angeles. We consider him to be a very good friend of the show's, and not just that, but he really is using his platform. As you can imagine, as an Olympian, he has so many people following him, and he really is using it to spread the message of social consciousness, of social reform, whether it be in this instance with Black Lives Matter. We're in the middle of Pride. Really we shouldn't discount the need to also have, trans lives, people of color, also, be considered as part of that bigger conversation, as they do experience a higher number of deaths and abuses on the whole. And Daniel really is a huge proponent of those types of changes. And, he's a young guy, but for someone who is young, I know I'm going to sound like an old fart, right? But someone who is, younger than us, he is very articulate and very well spoken and thoughtful in his responses. And again, that's one of the reasons we invited him to be on that particular live stream, because we knew that his contributions were going to come from a place of thoughtfulness and not just knee-jerk reactionism. Similarly, we invited our friend Louis Aguirre. He is a anchor for Local 10, Channel 10 WPLG here in South Florida. And aside from the fact that he is a reporter and has been witnessing everything firsthand, we really had him on the show because the initial Saturday of the protests, he was on the ground. He was there firsthand, and he saw, what the protests were really about and the effects of those, rabble rousers, bad apples, however you want to refer to them, in trying to subvert the peaceful message and the genuine call for change into something that was intended to just be, chaotic. He was on the scene as some rioters, versus protesters. Some rioters attempted to start storming a local CVS, and he witnessed firsthand and even took video. You can see it on his Instagram. I believe he should still have it up. The protesters actually started forming a human fence, a human barrier between the rioters and the CVS so that they could not continue to inflict that damage on the property and really incite that violence, which ultimately was their goal. And so, hearing him speak about that experience that I had actually seen happen live, saw him on the scene as it was happening. And when it was happening, he had such passion in his voice as he was arguing with some detractors who were trying to say that, the rioters, they were the protesters. And he is a man who genuinely loves the city of Miami as much, maybe a little more than DJ and I do. And it came through so clearly and so passionately. And I've never been more proud to be a Miamian than watching Louis Aguirre defend people's right to protest and contradict others who were trying to subvert the narrative and say that, the protesters were the ones causing the problem. And so that's why we invited, Louis Aguirre and Daniel Leva, both of whom are fantastic and hopefully will continue to be part of our show as we progress. Hopefully under better circumstances, coming on to talk about things a little bit more anecdotal and cheery than something so serious. But it's fantastic that they're also willing to have those serious conversations with us and with our listeners, because it demonstrates that anybody can make a joke and anybody can have fun. And of course, we all like to have fun. Shit, we've been in quarantine for 7 years now. Who the hell knew we'd be getting out, to go protest? That's what would, really motivate us. But again, the fact that them and others like them with that platform and with that recognition are willing to have these conversations and really stand out with that message and ensure it gets across is very, very reassuring to me that things hopefully may be changing. To that end, on the Instagram Live, as you know, we always give a last soda every episode. We award it. Sometimes it's a gasless soda to somebody who's being a bit naughty or a big ass. But more often than not, it is a soda that we give for positive reasons, for reasons of either being a force for good or being some type of symbol and something that we want to continue to bring out into the conversation and that we think deserves the spotlight. And so because we recorded this on June 5th, this past Friday, initially, that was the goal, we extended our last soda to Breonna Taylor. For those of you who may not know, she is a recent victim of overt police force, I think is the best way to describe it. She was the young lady, I believe she would have been 27 this year on her birthday, the young lady who was essentially wrong place at the wrong time. She was in the house that the police had designated as housing a criminal that they were searching for. They broke into the house. We don't really know what happened. I mean, it's not that we don't know what happened, but there's varying stories. But ultimately, they shot Breonna and killed her. And to this date, none of the officers have been charged. And at most, I believe what her family has gotten as far as a response is a very pithy, sorry for the mistake. That's not acceptable at all in any way, shape, or form. And, other stories like that. And so our last soda goes to Breonna Taylor. Wish we would have the opportunity to give it to her for something more, I don't want to say positive, but for something that didn't involve her dying, I guess is the best way to put it. But by extension, we also wanted to extend it to everyone who's going out there and making sure that our voices are heard, that we are doing something about this, that we are making our presence known, whether it be through a protest, through donations, monetary donations, or even through things like this. If you have a platform within which you can speak about righting the wrongs of society, at the very least, you're generating awareness. And so to everyone who has decided enough is enough, I also want to salute you. I also want to remind everybody that ultimately, the best way to affect change in this country is by voting. So if you are not a registered voter, you still have time. Please go ahead and do so. There's various resources online where you can go ahead and register to vote. And make sure you get out there and do it. Ultimately, we can protest. And change can come through protest. But change can also come if we make our voices heard. And every year we hear more and more about, well, not every year, but every election year, we hear about the declining numbers of voters actually showing up to the polls. And that has to stop. That has to stop. Let's all make sure that we get our voices heard out there. And, on the subject of doing our small part, as it were, as some of you may know, we do have 3 T-shirts that we sell. One is the U.S. Census, but it says that we're, de Miami, the Lechon Life, and El Sereno definition, very humorous definition of El Sereno. And we have all 3 shirts on sale at the Pero Let Me Tell You Shop.com website. But for the entire month of June, what we've decided to do is any shirts that are sold, we will be donating 10% of all sales to the NAACP. Now, we know that they are like the OGs of finding ways and fighting the good fight for Black equality. And so we're very proud to support this organization. And we hope that as a result, you all decide that maybe you've been holding off on buying that shirt for whatever reason. You love the Lechon Life, you love the Miami shirt, haven't gotten around to it for whatever reason. But, if you make that purchase now through the month of June, your purchase of a T-shirt will go a little bit further. It will result in a donation, again, as I said, to the NAACP. And, those are funds that they can use right now as they continue to fight for equality. So with all of that said, I want to thank you for listening to this very mini episode. As DJ would say, make sure you have your croqueta, pastelito, and jupiña. And, we hope you listened. Probably didn't laugh that much this episode, but definitely there's an opportunity for all of us to learn. So with that, guys, I leave you, and I promise next week we'll have a more robust episode. We may have a guest. We don't know yet, but it'll be back to business as usual for us. Obviously, we'll continue to touch on these topics as they are very prevalent to not just, African Americans, but to everyone, and especially as Latinos, we have to support as well. So hope to see you guys around, and please feel free, as always, to reach out to us with any comments or questions or things you just want to chat about. We love to hear from you. All right, mi gente, cuídense and be good to yourselves and be good to everybody else. Bye. Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.